All right, so I think we're good. Yeah, I got the red button or whatever. Okay. Bonjour, madame.
Bonjour, mademoiselle.
Classe, nous sommes dans la même classe. Ce sont les premières notes ici
Oui.
à Braintree. Oui. Et
Oui, c'est très surexcitant.
oui, nous sommes vaccinés et alors nous pouvons faire les notes ici à l'école. Aujourd'hui, nous allons parler du subjonctif encore et c'est le subjonctif avec volonté. Alors, les notes, il y a une partie, une nouvelle partie, et il y a, oh, well, cette partie, c'est la partie qui est nouvelle, et le subjonctif n'est pas nouveau pour us. For you. Wow, I want to restart that because that was. So sorry. Okay, well, we'll just edit this out. I like poor new. Like, okay.
Okay, sorry.
Action. Okay, bonjour, madame.
Bonjour, mademoiselle.
Nous sommes ici dans la même classe parce que nous sommes vaccinés. Et oui, ce sont les premières notes à Braintree.
Oui, exactement. C'est très surexcitant.
Mm-hmm. Aujourd'hui, nous allons parler du subjonctif. Et le subjonctif n'est pas nouveau, mais le subjonctif avec volonté, c'est une nouvelle chose, c'est un nouveau sujet. Alors, nous allons commencer.
D'accord, je suis prête.
Okay, so Madame, can you maybe remind us like what I'm showing everybody here on these slides?
Oui, so these are the 7 important irregular verbs in the subjunctive that we first learned when we learned the subjunctive, and they're really commonly used, but they're like totally irregular, so we wanted to make sure that everybody remembers these, and they're, a little strange, so to speak. So these are the 7 verbs that we said before were important to remember and important to know.
Oui, super. And just as a reminder, we only gave you guys the eel and eel plural forms of these verbs, but they can be in the je form, they can be in the new form, it's definitely possible. We gave you just these two because it was most important. And Madame, could you maybe just quickly remind us what all these words mean? And then if you want to help pronounce like the top and bottom, well, the top and the bottom will be pronounced the same, but if you could just do that real quick so we have a reminder.
Oui. So, aller to go. So, kiel I is how that's pronounced, like the I in your head on your face. Avoir to have, kiel A, like the letter A in English. Comprendre to understand, kiel comprenne. Être to be, kiel soit. Faire to do or to make, qu'il fasse. Pouvoir to be able to, qu'il puisse. And savoir to know, qu'il sache. And the forms, the il singular and the il plural forms, are all pronounced the same. We never pronounce that ENT at the end of the il plural form. So that's why I only gave one pronunciation for each.
Excellent, super. So right, unless you're writing these out, you won't hear the difference. So it's a little bit tricky. So merci pour cette révision. And then we learned the regular subjunctive conjugations after the irregulars, which isn't typically how we do those. Usually you'll get the regulars at first, and then like your teacher will show you the irregulars. And so with the regular verbs in the subjunctive, we do have these endings, which are the same ones that were used on the completely irregulars on the other page, because every single verb in the subjunctive takes only one of these endings, these 6 endings. So that's nice about the subjunctive, is that it doesn't matter what the infinitive verb is, like ER, IR, or RE. They all take the same endings. And Madame, can you either paraphrase what's written here again or remind us what you already know about the regular verbs in the subjunctive?
Oui, so when you are forming the subjunctive of regular verbs, you go to the il plural form of the indicative, which is the plain old present tense that we learned oh so long ago in like 7th grade. And you drop the ENT from the il plural form, and then you add the subjunctive endings, EES, EIONS, IEZ, ENT.
Super. And so I'm going to show just these 3 verbs we did on the set of subjunctive notes with emotion. I believe we included even more examples of verbs that are conjugated, but if you look at these 3 that are here, that'll give you the gist. And then, of course, you can always use reverso conjugator or word reference or those notes if you need to remember a verb that's like a slightly irregular one. But what
one second, mademoiselle. On those verbs, I think are totally separate notes.
Oh,
but
okay.
Yeah, they're there, but they're different. They're not with the emotions.
Oh, okay. Thanks for correcting me. So they're their own set of notes, which you can find and access. And merci, madame, for correcting me on that. And so can you, now that we're looking at some regular verbs conjugated in the subjunctive, can you tell me what things that you notice that like are similar or different from other conjugations, or things that are like easy or tricky, or anything else that you notice?
So the first obvious thing that I notice is that the il plural form are the same in the subjunctive and the indicative, which makes sense because you drop the ENT and then you add ENT. And for ER verbs, the je, the to, and the il singular are also the same as the indicative. That's not the case for IR and RE verbs. But if you look at the nu and vu forms of all of these verbs, they're the same as the imperfect forms of the verbs.
Okay, super. Yeah, and the imperfect, as we call it in French, the imparfait, that's one of those past tense forms. And sometimes we talk about it on its own. Sometimes we learn the imparfait with the passé composé. And sometimes we learn the imparfait with si clauses. So those might be the times that you've seen the imparfait this year. And if you don't remember all of that because it's been such a long year, that's okay. This is just something that could be helpful. And if it's not, you can just take these notes and use it to help you remember the endings. But I think you hit it on the nose that the il plural form of like any verb in the subjunctive is the same as in the indicative, aka regular present tense. For ER verbs, a lot more of the forms look exactly the same, and as opposed to these other ones. And then exactly, yeah, the nu and vu forms have these little letter I's. They're kind of easy to miss sometimes, so just you make sure you put them in there. But otherwise, that's parfait. Super. So now that's the conjugation of the subjunctive, and that's kind of like the second half. We're like starting at the end actually. And so how do we get the subjunctive? Like how do we know that we're going to need to use it?
So first you need a trigger phrase. And the trigger phrase is the trigger to use the subjunctive, or an alert that we're going to follow. What follows is going to be in the subjunctive. There are 2 types of trigger phrases that we know now, which are the impersonal expressions. That was the first thing we learned when we did le subjonctif. So some examples, il est nécessaire, il est impossible, il est possible, etc. Il est bon que. We have a whole list of like 10 of those. And then the other type of trigger phrase that we know is expressions of emotion. So like I'm happy that, or I'm sad that, or I'm scared that, I'm surprised that. And then you have to have que after the trigger phrase or as part of the trigger phrase. And you have to have a new subject after the que. So, I'm happy that I went to France. You would not use the subjunctive, but I'm happy that you went to France or you're going to France. You would use the subjunctive.
Super awesome, and I'm glad you reminded us of that, that if you're talking about yourself the entire sentence, then there's no reason for subjunctive. It's when you care about what somebody else is doing. So when you're sort of being a Budinsky and, getting off in their business about what they're doing. Awesome. So we're going to learn a couple more trigger phrases. And so we'll look at some examples, and I'll have you, Madame, go through, figure out what the sentences mean, and see if you can maybe guess like what the category is. It'll be a little tricky, but see if you can guess the category of trigger phrase that are in these following expressions. Okay, so here we go. We've got 6 sentences. If you want to read out loud, the verbs in yellow are the ones in subjunctive, and then the phrases in orange are the ones that are the trigger phrases.
Okay, so je veux que tu sois gentil avec ton frère. Je préfère que tu ne regardes pas des films d'horreur avec les enfants. J'aimerais que tu aies un stylo numéro 2 pour faire l'examen. Mes parents exigent que je fasse tous mes devoirs. Ils souhaitent que je choisisse une université dans le Massachusetts. Ils désirent que je comprenne mes sujets. So je veux que I want que tu sois gentil avec ton frère. I want that you are nice with your brother. Doesn't really sound right in English, but I think that's what it means. Je préfère que tu ne regardes pas des films d'horreur avec les enfants. I prefer that you not watch horror movies with kids. J'aimerais que tu aies un stylo numéro 2 pour faire l'examen. I would like that you have a number 2 pencil to take the test. Mes parents exigent que je fasse tous mes devoirs. Exige is a word that I don't really know yet. Mes parents exigent, so my parents, I'm not sure that I do my homework. And souhaiter, I've never seen before either. Ils souhaitent que je choisisse une université dans le Massachusetts. So something that I choose a school in Massachusetts. And ils désirent que je comprenne mes sujets. They desire that I understand my classes, my subjects.
Super. So I really like, well, the first time you were reading these sentences, I really liked that you did a double take with choisisse, because yes, the spelling difference, normally it's in the regular indicative present tense, it's just choisis, and you stop here, and so you don't pronounce that S, and now je choisis, when you can hear the S, is because it's the subjunctive. So that's a really good distinction. And then you said that you understood, here, let me erase. Oh. Okay, and then you said that you understood these 6 phrases. You understood 4 out of them. So I want, I prefer, I want that, I prefer that, I would like that, and they desire that. So you figured out those ones, and these 2 you didn't really know. But is there something that you can categorize these 4 trigger phrases as, if you had to, or do you think you need more information?
No, I mean, I think they have to do with what people want, would like, want, prefer, desire. They all have to do with wants.
Perfect. So what I didn't mean to reveal just a second ago, right? But exactly. So the beginning of these slides was called the subjonctif avec volonte. Volonté means wanting. And it sounds like this English word volition. And so if somebody is doing something of their own volition, that means they're doing it voluntarily. They're doing it because they want to. And so in French, we use the subjunctive when we want, and want in any form, want, desire, wish. We want other people to do something. So You're exactly right. And then you said that you needed to figure out what these two phrases mean. And so we'll go through all of them. Je veux que, I want that. Je préfère que, I prefer that. J'aimerais que, I would like that. Mes parents exigent que, think about what your parents can do. They demand, right? So exiger is to demand that somebody does something. The sentence before said, mes parents exigent que je fasse tous mes devoirs. Oh, my parents demand that I do my homework. Makes sense. Souhaiter is to wish for something. So, ils souhaitent que je choisisse une université dans le Massachusetts. They wish that I choose a university in Massachusetts. And ils désirent is they desire. So these 6 you should add to your list of trigger phrases, because if you see these forms, and it doesn't have to be the je form, it doesn't have to be the il form, it can be any conjugation of these verbs. If you see these at the beginning with a que, then you know that subjunctive is going to follow. Do you have any questions, Madame, or anything you think that I missed or that we didn't talk about yet?
So just one thing that I like to kind of, that helps me remember that the subjunctive is used with verbs of volition or volonte en français, is that when there's 2 different subjects, when the subject is the same, you're going to use the infinitive, just like with the emotion, the expressions of emotion. But, you know, when the subject is different, if I say, for example, can you go back one so I can look at one of the sentences? Thank you. If I say, for example, I want that you are nice with your brother. Well, in English, that's not how I would say it. I would say, I want you to be nice with your brother, or to your brother. But, and that's one thing that people really make a mistake on when they're writing in French, is that they will write it incorrectly by translating it word by word instead of translating it by phrase. So, je veux que tu sois gentil avec ton frère. In English, that translates, it doesn't translate literally word for word. It translates to, I want you to be nice with your brother. And so that's an important thing to remember. The other thing that helps me remember to use the subjunctive with verbs of volition is that just because I want you to be nice with your brother, it doesn't mean that you're going to be nice to your brother. And so it brings up that element of doubt that we talked about when we talked about the verb douter. So there's a big gray question mark as to whether or not you're going to be nice with your brother. Just because I want it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Just because your parents demand that you do all your homework, it doesn't mean you're going to sit down and do it all.
Okay, so very well said. Yes, the idea of subjunctive, the whole thing is that it's your emotion about somebody else's actions, and whether or not they do those actions is an entirely different story, but it's really just your opinions about what other people are going through. And I appreciate that you mentioned that translating word for word does not work from one language to another. You more often than not run into issues where if you try to do like a literal word for word translation, you get either in one language or the other something that sounds awkward or incorrect. So it's better to remember the chunks, the phrases, as opposed to trying to translate it literally. So super, merci. And the dernière partie, yep, you hit the nail on the head here. Oh no, it's all right. I'm glad that you said it before. And so yes, exactly that. We know, we learned again, like French 1, je veux manger, I want to eat, right? That's something that we learned to say. We've never said je veux que je mange, and we will never say that because that doesn't require the subjunctive. It only requires a subjunctive if we have que and a new subject, a new person. So thanks for bringing that up. Anything else you think we need to cover?
I don't think so.
Ok, d'accord. Then, question, commentaire, problème pour vous, nos élèves. Dites-nous et madame, merci et
Oui.
prochaine.